Hi, I'm Reed Mitchell. This is my talk on conformity. I hope you enjoy it. Oh, and this is our second video as Vet Talks. Oh boy, good graphics. All right. On November 18th, 1978, a tragedy known as the Jonestown incident occurred. 900 people, 300 of whom were children, committed suicide under the leadership of Jim Jones, their spiritual leader. To this day, it is considered the largest mass suicide in history. Even those who have never heard of the Jonestown incident cringe at the very description of it, but not in the same way that one might cringe the idea of a homicide. Although nobody should have to go through a painful and forced death, be it through suicide or murder, something about the Jonestown incident makes it very different from any typical crime. The idea of a group that massive, many of whom had families, willingly and sometimes unwillingly, killing themselves and their children purely in the name of religion is hard for the human mind to grasp. How is it possible for a single man, Jim Jones, to have so much control over such a large group of people that he can persuade them to take their own lives and the lives of their loved ones? How is it possible for a man to wield that much power over the human mind? The answer is simple. He appealed to one of the most fundamental aspects of the human mind and persona, conformity. In some ways, it has been an asset to human progress. It has allowed cultures to flourish, ideas to spread, and for the human race to move forward as one single entity. But conformity is also one of the easiest and most effective ways to exploit human nature. It is so powerful, in fact, that the harnessing of it can manipulate our very perception of reality. This is what Jim Jones was able to do. He was so incredible at it that he was able to convince his followers, previously to this incident of course, that he was justified in blackmailing, brainwashing, humiliating, and claiming their possessions for his own, before he finally commanded them to take their own lives. In the end, every single person in Jonestown had committed suicide, including the few who resisted his command. Though we may be able to simply identify the reason that Jones was able to have such a strong grip over the minds of his followers, the underlying details of the effect conformity has on the choices we make, even in our daily lives, is much more intricate. Decades of research have been poured into the subject, resulting in a far better, though not complete, understanding of the causes and effects of conformity in the human mind. This research and the numerous examples of it throughout human history, such as the Jonestown incident, will be the primary focus of this talk. The research on conformity starts in the mid-1900s, when a man known as Solomon Asch was creating some strange experiments with strange results. His first experiment pretty much consisted of getting people to guess the length of a series of lines without any adherence to logic or reason. His experiment revealed just the tip of the iceberg, but it showed just how powerful conformity could prove to be even in the simplest and most obvious of situations. The experiment was simple. It began with placing an unsuspecting test subject in a room with 7 other people who were scripted to force social pressures onto the unfortunate subject. The group would be presented with a series of lines, such as this. At first, the scripted participants gave correct answers to avoid arousing suspicion in the subject. Gradually, however, the scripted participants began to give completely bogus answers. This is when the experiment took a fascinating turn. As the experiment progressed, the unscripted test subject began willingly conforming their opinion to the other participants, in spite of the obvious lack of reason being applied to the problem at hand. His research ultimately concluded that 75% of his participants gave the wrong answer to at least one question. His work's publication sent shockwaves through the field of psychology, which can still be felt today in more intricate and interesting experiments. Take this much more recent experiment that I found on YouTube. Alright, maybe you should pause this. Alright, you're gonna have to go to the link below to see that video. We can't show it for like copyright reasons and stuff. But alright, so as you can see, conformity can be a simple but incredibly powerful tool to create social change, even in the most ridiculous ways. By simply letting the observer see that a majority are doing a certain thing, even if it's as strange as standing up and sitting down for no particular reason, or guessing the wrong answer on a test determining a length of lines, most will almost immediately conform to the trend of the majority. However, the effects of conformity do not stop at the incentivization of such strange behavior. In fact, conformity can be found throughout history, and its effects have had both incredibly positive and incredibly negative results on humans. These effects will be presented chronologically from the beginning of the human race to today's society. From an evolutionary perspective, conformity is actually a bit paradoxical in humans. In spite of the fact that our minds are designed to be extremely analytical, we succumb to the wills of other human beings almost by default. Even when doing so causes us to turn our backs to logic and reason, which is arguably what made us human in the first place. How could this possibly be helpful to our survival? The short answer is that humans are naturally inclined to prioritize the acquisition and preservation of social bonds. Although a human may be able to survive in the wild for some time, assuming he is experienced in that kind of environment, he is unlikely to live for very long without the assistance of other humans, especially in the case of more hazardous conditions such as the Amazon rainforest or the frigid tundra. Because of this issue our ancestors had, the desire for social interaction is just as hardwired into our brains as our adherence to logic and reason. Although we are fundamentally analytical beings, we have evolved as social beings, and these two sides of the mind will conflict, with the quicker and more impulsive system 1, which controls our social interactions, homeostasis, and other essential functions, oftentimes influencing or even taking over the much slower and methodical processes of the more analytical system 2, which controls logic and reason. Alright, so this is your comparison for this. This can be proven by the Stroop experiment. Alright, so Harrison, alright, I want you to name the color, not what the word says, but the color in each of these words, going from top to bottom in each row until you're finished, alright? So,
when do I start?
As soon as I press start, alright? I'll tell you when to go. Alright, ready, set, go.
Red, pink, green, gray, yellow, black, purple, orange, yellow, orange, gray, brown, red, brown, black, pink, blue, brown, black, pink, green, purple, yellow, brown, green, gray, blue, orange, black, orange, red, gray, black, purple, yellow, blue, gray, pink, green, purple.
Okay, well, for some reason, oh, there we go. That's not right, but okay. So that took a relatively short amount of time. Alright, so now for this. Alright?
Just say the color.
Yeah, ready, set, go.
Blue, yellow, orange, purple, red, blue, orange, black, brown, pink, green, red, blue, black, yellow, brown, blue, red, black, yellow, brown, purple.
Wait, stop.
Black. Wait, what?
This is, wait, you finished this one, so.
Oh. I guess red, black, yellow, brown, purple. What is that, like black? Black,
Green.
brown, yellow, pink, green, purple, blue, orange, black, red, pink, green, purple. I guess black,
Gray.
red, wait, red?
Yeah, keep
Like
going.
black, gray, red, pink, green, brown, red, orange, black.
Okay. That took them much longer for sure. As you can see, System 1 oftentimes takes over System 2. Your automatic processes are taking over the more methodical ones. That's pretty much the purpose of the Stroop test. Now, this is unrelated to the Stroop test. As you can see, the automatic system will overtake the analytical system in even the simplest of situations. In more complex situations, such as those requiring high amounts of socialization, the automatic system will continue this trend. This phenomenon will go on to affect humanity's behavior to this day and has played a key role in the execution of some of humanity's greatest accomplishments and its most violent crimes in history. So, one of the greatest and most obvious examples of the harnessing of conformity is socialism. Historically speaking, when a usually corrupt government attempts to implement socialist or communist policies, the streets are battered with propaganda that would try to convince the average citizen that he or she is part of something bigger. That when they work under unsafe and strenuous conditions with very little food and a low standard of living, they are doing it for the common good. So, something like that. The graphics are pretty bad, but it's basically this very heroic picture of some soldiers standing over everybody else. Now, obviously, this is for the Chinese Communist Revolution. Okay. The idea is to create a sense of conformity on such a large scale and to maintain such a high degree that each citizen feels as if the rest of the population is holding them accountable for their devotion to society. The ideal result would be a sense of conformity so powerful that you could essentially make a person believe anything. Imagine Solomon Asch's line experiment, but instead of only 7 other people saying the wrong answer, it's the entire population of the Soviet Union or Communist China. Okay. Alright, this is my favorite. Today we continue to experience conformity in far different ways than the average Soviet. One example of this is in our stock markets. Although most of the people in this classroom were still in elementary school during the 2008 housing bubble crisis and weren't even born yet during the 1990s dot-com bubble, both economic crises have had enormous impact on how we look at markets today and are also fantastic examples of conformity in economics. In this case, conformity can be shown in the sense that everyone who invested in their respective markets of one of these bubbles, be it the NASDAQ Composite Index, which is almost entirely made up of technology or internet stock, that's this right here, or in the housing market, shown right, felt that their investment was justified in spite of the ridiculously inflated price simply because other people were investing too. This contributed to a vicious cycle that can create bubbles in the stock market written about by the authors of Nudge. The story told by both the media and the numbers of the stock market, which suggested that everything was going well, causes prices to surge. So, for example, alright, so let me explain to you how this price surge and price drop can occur at such an extreme level. So, take something like the media, which has access to pretty much all of our minds. So, the media creates a story, and as a result of that story, with that story, they broadcast it to all of these investors. All right. So they bring it to the investors, and the investors are like, so say the story is a positive story. So they say like, oh, internet stocks have surged by, I don't know, 100% this week. Investors are like, oh, well, that must be an amazing stock. I want to get filthy rich. So what they do is they invest in the stock market, in that particular sector of the stock market, and on massive scales. So as a result, that price goes up. It's determined by the stock market that they value that stock more, and they do, because they believe it'll make them filthy rich. Well, as a result of that price, that's the next story the next week will be, wow, internet stocks have gone up by another 100%. don't know how that happens, so that goes to the investors, and they're like, oh my god, I want to be filthy rich, so they invest even more, and it creates this vicious cycle where the stock price will continue to go up and up and up until they reach this point, and investors are like, hey, I don't want to pay $2,000 for this crappy internet stock. So they reach this breaking point, and suddenly some investors are like, hey, maybe this is a bubble, I don't really want to invest anymore, so it starts going down. And the same vicious cycle continues. The story is that, oh, internet stocks are starting to go down by, say, 50% or something like that. Well, it can be even something very small. It's just these investors are waiting for a bubble because they know it's entirely possible. So these investors say, oh my gosh, it's going down, I don't really want to lose all of my money. So it creates this vicious cycle. They start selling and it devalues the stock, and then the story continues. Oh my gosh, it's gone down by 200%. Goes back to the investors selling more, crashes back to below or at the original price. All right, so that's basically how behavior and conformity affects stock prices, and it'll affect your life too, because when another one of these crashes happens, and it will happen because it's inherent to markets, basically. As long as investors are stupid, they'll do this, and as a result, we'll have bubbles, and it will affect your life because it'll make it miserable for at least a few years. So, all right, another fantastic and slightly simpler example of conformity today is on social media. With the invention and exponential growth of the internet, social media has become an essential part of how we interact with each other. And with billions of people logging onto Facebook alone, there will inherently be some form of conformity that occurs on social media. Aside from politics, which I will refrain from during this talk, social media has created a number of trends that almost entirely relied on conformity. Now, I don't even know if y'all remember this, because this was a while ago, but a recent example of this is the groundbreaking and absolutely life-changing historical landmark, the world record egg. Undoubtedly one of humanity's greatest achievements, the egg was posted on January 4th with the intention of breaking Kylie Jenner's previous most likes record on Instagram, and now has over 50.5 million likes in less than a month later. It's obviously not a month later, but Kylie Jenner has probably poured hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of dollars into her overwhelming success on social media. From her managers who post on her page to her photography crew, she has invested years of a fortune into her self-promotion to get to the level of fame required to ever hold a most liked record on such an immense social media platform as Instagram. This contrasts starkly to the egg, which most likely did not have millions of dollars invested in its promotion, nor did it have years of hard work put into its road to glory. So if the world record egg's success wasn't due to years of hard work and millions of dollars, how did it become so famous? You guessed it, conformity. When the egg began to gain momentum, people could see how fast it was growing and how many likes it had gotten. This number, as insignificant as it may seem, made them feel as if they were part of something bigger. And to be a part of this huge movement of a relatively insignificant cause, all they had to do was tap their screen twice. Through this both simple and ingenious use of people's attraction to conformity, an egg was able to almost triple the previous most liked Instagram post record in a matter of weeks. Overall, conformity has shaped human history in a number of ways. From human evolution to the most famous egg in the world, conformity has been nothing less than an essential component for human progress. I hope this talk has changed the way you think about both the human mind and the world as a whole, and hopefully inspires you to do your own research and present it to the club just as I have today. Thank you.